Part 2 of The Boy Who Watched Lincoln, we now explore Elijah's life after Lincoln's death. The legacy and hidden truths he carries forward. Elijah stood under the same oak tree where he once saw Lincoln speak to a crowd of farmers. It was years ago, in Illinois, before anyone imagined the man would hold a nation together through its darkest storm. Now the tree bore a different silence, not the hush of respect, but of memory. He reached into his worn satchel and pulled out the leather-bound notebook. The pages had thinned, stained by rain and time. His hands trembled, not from age, but from the weight of all he had carried. Not in his back, but in his heart. America had changed since Lincoln's death, but not always in the way the speeches promised. Reconstruction had begun, but so had betrayal. Freed slaves were still hunted in the South. Politicians who once cheered Lincoln now spoke carefully, their voices shifting with the winds of popularity. Elijah, now a man of 30, still lived on the edges, never quite belonging, never fully seen. But he had become more than a watcher. He was now a witness. He traveled through towns where Lincoln's name was spoken like a hymn, and others where it was spat out like a curse. He listened to freedmen speak of hope. He saw former Confederates rewrite their stories. He documented them all. He had no interest in statues. He wanted truth. One summer, in New Orleans, Elijah stayed with a woman named Clara. She had been a nurse during the war and treated wounded. Union and Confederate soldiers, without asking which side they prayed to. One night by candlelight, she asked, "Why do you keep writing about a man who is gone?" Elijah answered, "Because people forget too quickly, or they remember wrongly." She smiled, pressing a warm cloth to her aching hands. "Then make sure they remember rightly." In 1871, Elijah began compiling all his notebooks. It took him 4 years. He arranged the stories chronologically, not just Lincoln's speeches or famous acts, but the small things. How he gave away his lunch to a child. How he once mended his own coat in a quiet hotel room. How he spent an hour writing a letter to the mother of a soldier who died even though he didn't know her. Elijah called the manuscript The Quiet Man. Notes from the Shadow of Abraham Lincoln. He sent it to publishers across the country. Most rejected it. One editor wrote back, "Too poetic, too personal. We want facts, not feelings." Another said, "Lincoln is a myth now. Your little tales shrink him." But one publisher in Boston, an older man who had once heard Lincoln speak at Gettysburg, published it in secret. Only 100 copies were printed. The book never made newspapers, was passed from hand to hand like a secret gospel. Quietly, reverently. Decades passed. America industrialized. Cities grew. New wars came. New presidents. But Elijah never stopped writing. He recorded how Lincoln's name was used in arguments by both sides. How schools painted him as a saint, erasing his doubts and failures. How the man Elijah knew, flawed, tender, tormented, was vanishing into marble and myth. By 1895, Elijah was nearly 70. His hair had silvered. His hands were rough with time. But his eyes, still dark and sharp, never lost their watchfulness. One winter morning, he stood in Washington, D.C. again. The newly built Lincoln Memorial was being planned. He heard artists discuss what pose to carve, what expression to give him, what words to engrave. Elijah didn't interrupt. He simply watched. That night, he sat under a gas lamp and wrote his final letter to the only man who had ever truly seen him. "Mr. Lincoln, they will build you in stone. They will lift your name higher than your voice ever was. But I will remember you as the man who once paused outside a courtroom and nodded to a boy who had no name. I have told your story as I saw it. The real story. I watched you walk through fire without burning others. I watched you die with more dignity than most men live with. And though I was no one, I thank you for making me feel seen." Elijah died in 1898. He was buried in a small field outside Bardstown, Kentucky. His gravestone simply read, "Elijah, the boy who watched." Years later, a historian found a weathered box in a library basement. Inside were Elijah's notebooks, all of them preserved in oilcloth, still smelling faintly of smoke and ink. What began as a boy a silent fascination had become an unofficial record of America's most sacred trial. Abraham Lincoln was long gone, but Elijah's eyes and his truth remained.